Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unsung Heroes Round 10 of the 2026 AMA Pro Motocross Championship is in the books. The Yamaha Budds Creek National. What a wild day weather-wise. From rain in the morning, steady but light getting the track dialed in, to the deluge that happened and the track got muddy. Shout out to the SMX track crew for working overtime a little bit in between sessions to get things ready to go. It was a bit muddy during the first 250 race, but the sun was out and it dried up throughout the day. A wild weekend of racing in both championship battles as well, and of course, some privateers putting in solid results. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Trey Stire, your host. You, of course, can find this show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Radio. Be sure to spread the word and spread the love. Thanks for listening, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this week's edition, the penultimate Unsung Heroes of the 2026 Pro Motocross season. We are kicking things off this week on the Unsung Heroes with a bit of news that dropped on Friday. Two privateer organizations coming together to form a strategic partnership to tackle things in 2027 and beyond. I am here with a part of that merger, so to speak. He founded the HBI Racing team. Of course, if you've been watching Pro Motocross, you probably remember that team best for Ty Masterpool's Cinderella runs in 2023 and the runs that put him on the map and landed him an opportunity with the Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki team. This organization also has supported multiple riders throughout 2026. Aiden Scheib during the 250 West Supercross season, Matthew Mowry, Joey DeSanti during Pro Motocross. Please welcome to the Unsung Heroes the team owner of HBI Racing, Matt Bell. What's up, man? You've been on the show before, or at least been a part of the article series, now here on the podcast version. Some exciting news, and I'll let you share what this merger entails. But HBI Racing is going to have a bit of a new look in 2027.
Yes, sir. Hey, Trey, man, it's good to be on here with you. Like I told you before, sorry if I'm out of breath a little bit. I just got out of the gym. I had my leg day today, so I'm pretty beat for a 51-year-old guy. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I'm really stoked with this partnership with Werks Power Sports up in Indiana. And do you mean to give you a little background about how this kind of came together? Is that a good starting point for you?
Yes, absolutely. I will say, for those who did not see the news, there is a new organization called Werks Racing Triumph. They have been competing all summer long. They have a racer in the 250 class, as well as three athletes in WMX. And now Werks Racing and HBI Racing have come together to form a partnership for 2027 and beyond. And Matt, you can go ahead and jump in and give some details on how things came together and what your guys' outlook is for the future.
Sounds good. Yeah, so it kind of came together really strange. So there's a pro racer, a guy named Tyler McSwain. He's from up here in North Carolina, and he was a guy that was super fast at Loretta's. I know I think he finished second behind Cooper Webb in 250B back when Cooper Webb was in the B class. He won some classes at Loretta's, and just life kind of hit him pretty hard. He got out of moto completely. He's 31 years old now, and he made a post. I'm friends with him on Facebook. He made a post on Facebook that he would give a sum of money to anyone that could get him to one round of pro motocross next season. And so I saw the post and I commented on it, and I said, hey, why don't we talk and maybe try to find out what's going on and what you're trying to do. So we got on a phone call, and he explained that he had some money. He wanted to go racing. He really wanted to try to make a run at pro motocross. He felt he never was able to prove what he could do. And so I said, well, just so happens I think we can help you out and get you to more than one round. I think we can get you to multiple rounds for what you have there to invest. And so we talked it up a little bit, and he had sent me a screenshot of a message he sent to David Stauffer at Werks Power Sports, just saying, hey, can you help me with bikes? And so David sent Tyler McSwain his email, and I asked Tyler, I'm like, well, do you want to contact him or do you want me to? And he said, well, why don't you do it? You're in charge of this. And so I sent David a message. He responded back a couple hours later and said, well, let's talk. And we got on a phone call about a week and a half ago Sunday, and we really clicked on the phone call. Both he and I felt like this was something that could be mutually beneficial, and so my wife Darla and I drove up 9 hours to Fort Wayne, Indiana last Thursday. Met with David uh, Friday, and we met with him for 6 or 7 hours at the dealership. Got a good handle about what he was able to offer as far as bikes, engine packages, the connections with Triumph, and we have now signed a deal. So what this looks like initially is that Werks Power Sports Bridgestone Racing is going to be doing actually multiple series. So they support amateurs. They're at all the big six amateur events doing trackside support. They're also going to be doing Canadian Arenacross. They're going to be doing U.S. Partzilla Arenacross, and then with HBI Racing coming into this, we're also with them going to be doing Supercross 250 East 2027. Initially, we're looking at a two-rider team, and then that's going to extend into outdoors 2027. So that's kind of the initial plan. As things work out, that could expand, but that's where we're at right now.
Very exciting news for a couple privateer organizations, and you just mentioned Indiana, of course, heading there this weekend, Ironman Raceway, the finale of Pro Motocross. So a bit of a home race for the Werks crew, but you're no stranger to supporting Supercross and Motocross teams. Of course, I mentioned Ty Masterpool, Aiden Shive among the athletes who have competed on your team, Caden Braswell as well in the playoffs a few years ago. Now getting this partnership really going, and for Triumph, this is also pretty cool because they don't have any other support teams apart from their factory organization. Now it seems like they're going to be working with you guys, and of course they have the Triumph of Harrisonburg crew as well that field Luca Marsalisi, but getting back to Supercross and Motocross full time, you guys have been a little bit quieter the last couple years, but now this opportunity really gives you guys a chance to hit the ground running. How excited are you to get this partnership underway and start building to full-time racing again?
Really excited. And, you're right. We did kind of step back for a couple of years. Just with things going on with my business and personal life. My mom was not in good health. I was really her full-time caregiver for the past 2 years until she passed away late last year. And so, family's more important than anything else. We love racing. My wife Darla and I, that's a passion of ours, not only to get results, but really to help build these riders up spiritually, help them to understand how life works, and just to be a support for them. I mean, this is really family. We tell this, and we've said this to Aiden as well, who we supported last season. He is family to us, and his uncle Donnie, their family. They're going to continue to be family in the future, we hope. I'll just put this out here. We hope to sign Aiden for this next season. I think that's looking promising. And then we have another rider I can't mention yet that we're pretty confident we're going to bring on board, a main event rider for 250 East. So it's exciting. We love the sport and we love racing, and it's awesome to be able to step back into it. What I'd say is full time with some additional support behind us and a closer relationship with a manufacturer in Triumph, who really loves dirt bikes. I mean, that's what their focus is right now. Obviously, they've got some great street bikes, but they want to make this thing happen, and they want to become a major player even more than they are in the dirt bike arena. So yeah, it's super exciting.
Of course, not just AMA Supercross, AMA Motocross, but you mentioned Arenacross in there. Of course, you mentioned Aiden again. He actually had a great season in the Partzilla Arenacross series, won the opening main event of the year in the Open Pro class, held the red plate for a few rounds. Then you mentioned Canada as well. That was the one that really jumped to my attention when I saw the press release on Friday. Two teams working together to go north of the border. Talk a little bit about your plans to go up to Canada. Of course, there are several established teams up there, especially in the motocross series, but it really seems like Canada could be an opportunity to present your team to new eyes as well.
Yeah, I think so. Also, I mean, David is going to be the one heading up kind of that, spearheading that effort, but it makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you, with where Werks Power Sports is located. So when we were having our phone call, he mentioned that where they race in Canada, which is Ontario, in that territory, pretty much all the races are within 8 hours of their shop. So it's very easy for them to load up a sprinter, head up there, go to a race, drive 8 hours, go race, and come back and, you know, get back home, get the bikes prepped again, and get ready for the next one. It's a little trickier for them for the U.S. on the Supercross side because the races are more spread out. Same thing with motocross, and so that's where we came in. I mean, David's focus is selling bikes. You know, that's how he makes money. That's how he runs his business. And I'll just throw this out there. I mean, the Werks Triumph dealership sells more Triumph dirt bikes than any dealership in the entire world. So that tells you how committed they are to the dirt scene. But it makes a lot of sense to go north of the border where they're located. I mean, we're going to obviously support that effort, and we're helping him any way we can with our connections in the industry to bring more power to the team. But I'm excited to see what the riders can do. I think it's going to be a great series kicking off there.
I've mentioned multiple of the success stories in the HBI Racing past. Of course, Ty Masterpool, the one that always comes to mind. You were able to help some of these racers continuing their pro careers. Also, Jake Masterpool just came to mind as well. Ty's older brother. He was gone for a few years, then he came back and scored points with you guys. Talk about the first run of the team as well. How rewarding was it, not just for you to impact their lives and give them advice, but also to watch them grow and progress and maybe achieve things that they thought wasn't possible with your HBI Racing team?
Yeah, I mean, bringing Ty and Jake in, they're for one thing, they're just from a great family. They're great individuals, but Jake had dealt with some pretty severe health issues with his back and some other things he was battling, and it was pretty incredible how well he did at the first pro motocross race when he came back. He just was not able to have the stamina, unfortunately, to continue on just with the health issues he was dealing with. The speed was there, but his body wouldn't let him do what he was mentally wanting to do. But it was great to have him for a period of time and be able to help him out and let him race some. And as far as Ty, we always told him, and we tell all of our racers that our goal really is to get them a factory ride. I hope one day HBI and the Werks Power Sports Racing team will be able to pay riders what factories do. That's always the goal for every team. But until that happens, we want to get those riders to where they're able to make some money. And we were really proud to be able to get Ty that ride at Pro Circuit. Him going out there and winning a pro national. I mean, I was screaming at the TV just as loud as I would have been if he was on our team. So, that is, I would say, an accomplishment for us. And a lot of people I don't think saw it that way. They felt like, well, he kind of stabbed you guys in the back, but that's not the case. We talked it through with him before he ever made the decision. And on the phone with him, I said, look, you have to take this opportunity. It may not come again. We were ready for you to race for us, but you need to go do this. And I'm glad he did.
The Werks Triumph team right now finishing up their first full year of pro motocross, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, they have Nick Hunt racing in the 250 class. They also have a trio in WMX as well. Taylor Harold, Sydney Wagner, Kerry Killebrew, some points on the board for the team as well. I ran into a few of the folks wearing some Werks Racing shirts. They were cheering on Sid on Friday afternoon, a top 15 finish for her in the first moto. I'm curious, have you been able to talk to any of the athletes currently involved with the Werks Racing program? Obviously, they're going around getting their feet wet, learning these national tracks for the first time, but have you been able to really get in touch and get to know some of their current athletes?
I haven't on the WMX side. I haven't spoken to any of the ladies that are racing. I hope to do that here in the near future. But I've spoken with Nick Hunt. He's actually one of the mechanics at the shop and is a really big part of developing the engines, testing the bikes that are going out on the track, and super great guy. I mean, the guy lives and breathes motocross, and so he has a real love for the team, a real love for the sport, and it's great to have a pro rider that is out there testing the bikes before we ever get on it, because man, it makes it so much easier. I'll just add this in. One of the biggest challenges of the first season that we had were really getting the engine packages and suspension right. And so, when you're trying to test a bike that you've never raced on before, You're spending a lot of money blowing engines up. You're spending a lot of money trying to get the suspension right. And so having Nick as part of that program developing the bike, I think is going to really get us a leg ahead. We're going to send the boys up to Indiana here in the next probably 30 days to start testing. We'll have bikes built and ready for them to go. And so Nick's going to be there and helping them get the suspension set up for Supercross and getting the tuning right. And yeah, it's going to be great working with them.
Sounds like a very great asset to have. Of course, Nick in his career, he was in the motos as an alternate at Unadilla, getting some experience among the best in the world. My next question for you, obviously 2027 up on the horizon, but 2026 has been a fantastic year for motocross. I know there's some really close battles going down to the wire this weekend in the points. The Lawrence brothers, Cole Davies, Levi Kitchen battling it out in the 250 class. As a fan of the sport, how fun has 2026 been to watch? Man, 2026 has had us spoiled. I mean, you go back to Supercross as well, Ken Roxon winning his championship. It's been a fantastic year to be not only within the industry, but also a fan of pro motocross and Supercross this year. It seems like every single race has delivered, and there's always been twists and turns, exciting moments in each class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the fans are really loving it the last 2 years. I think it's been great for the industry and the sport to have the close battles and different riders winning races. I mean, obviously, Jet Lawrence is an incredible rider. He's super close with Aiden as well. They ride at the dog pound together. And I mean, love the guy, but I don't want to see him win every race because it gets boring. And so you having him mix it up with Hunter, having Deegan in the mix, Prado, some of the guys from overseas that are really finishing well, that just makes it interesting for all the fans. And then, of course, the 250 class. I mean, it's been a mix-up almost every race, and that's exciting to watch. So I think that it's been great for the sport for the past 2 years, and it's been fun to watch. I'm hoping we're going to see more of that next year.
Now, shifting gears to a cause near and dear to the heart of HBI Racing, of course, another person that has been very connected to the Unsung Heroes was Jamie Bradford. There's a race coming up in September. It is the week between Ironman and the beginning of the SMX playoffs, an event I believe at Dade City MX, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is called Race for Jamie, of course, honoring the life of the late great Jamie Bradford, and I know you were able to spend a lot of time with her and Cole and the team. What an absolute light she was, and I'd love to get your thoughts not only on the type of person she was, as I asked Crockett Myers earlier in this season, but also the event. You can probably give a few more details than I can, but for folks who might want to check that race out and what all it entails, I know all the proceeds, there's a benefit auction right now, and all the proceeds are going to the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation. You can check that out in Cole Bradford's Instagram bio. There are jerseys signed, helmets signed, a lot of other memorabilia, and all of it going to a great cause. But I'd love to hear from you on how important of a person and how incredible Jamie really was, because, man, talk about one of the absolute sweetest souls you can ever meet and one of the strongest people as well.
Yeah, she sure was. And Jamie, the thing I will say about her that I think stood out for everyone is that she was always smiling. Even when she was in pain, even when she was dealing with chemo, she was always smiling and was a light, like you said, Trey, to everyone around her. Um, I'll say this for Jamie, and I was one of the two people besides Jake Veneta, who is the chaplain for Supercross and Motocross. We both kind of jointly preached her funeral, and the amount of people there, the people that loved her, continue to love her, was incredible. The thing that gives me the most hope was that when Jamie was kind of nearing the end, Cole called us and said, "Hey, if you want to see her, you really need to get down here to Florida." So my wife, Darla, and I drove down, met with Jamie, and she was in the hospital, was not doing well. And we asked her, how are you? And she said, and these are the words that stuck with me: "I'm not afraid because I know that Jesus is with me." And so to hear that when she was going through so much, I know where she's at. She's in heaven. We're going to see her again one day. That gives me hope. And she continues to shine a light here on this earth with all the people that know her and knew her. As far as the event, we're going to be there at Dade City on September 5th. There is an online auction. There's some really cool stuff on there. There's some Nikes that are signed by Jet Lawrence. There's a bunch of jerseys on there. Go check it out. It's for a great cause, the Pediatric Cancer Foundation, like you said, Trey. And I hope people will donate. It's just incredible what they do for kids. And we actually have a little girl who's 2 years old at our church who is going to be getting some funding from them, who found out she has cancer in her leg. And so it's an important organization, and we're happy to support it.
Matt Bell here from HBI Racing, talking about the new partnership between HBI and Werks Racing. Before we conclude, go ahead and give a shout out to your guys' social media. Where can people follow along for not only updates throughout the team, but to see the progress from the off season and building bikes to Supercross next year and all of the other series, including Partzilla Arenacross that they are going to tackle? Give people a glimpse and give them the knowledge where they can find you guys to help support your mission and your journey as a brand new joint operation.
Absolutely. So they can go to at HBI Racing on Instagram, as well as at Werks Triumph Racing, and Werks is spelled Werks. Check those two sites out. Eventually, we're going to combine those two together once we figure out how to do that. Both sites have following, so we're trying to keep them both open right now, but we'll see more combined social media. We're also on Facebook as well under HBI Racing, and Werks Triumph Racing is also on Facebook. So search us out, follow us. We're going to see a lot of updates coming up here in the next week. Hopefully, we'll have some announcements on rider signings and getting prepped for Supercross 2027.
Exciting news coming soon. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding light into the new partnership. This has been Matt Bell on the Unsung Heroes. Can't wait to see you back at the track in 2027.
Yeah, same here, Trey. It's going to be great to see everybody out there, and we're looking forward to it.
Thanks once again to Matt Bell for the time on this week's show discussing the new partnership between HBI Racing and Werks Racing Triumph. Excited to see what those two work together and create for the 2027 season. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into things, starting with the top privateer performers in the 250 class. Lux Turner was the top performer of non-factory racers. A great afternoon for the Toyota Redlands Bar X Yamaha rider. He's had some off days this summer, a lot of times due to bad luck and certain gremlins, but man, when he's been on, and he's been around the 6 to 10 range a lot. He was on Saturday as well, 7-9 for 7th overall, and he ran 5th for the first half of the opening moto. A great showing for the number 43. He battled his teammate a little bit, Parker Ross, there in the second moto, and some of the Star Yamaha riders. Turner now 14th in the playoff seeding, and he is all but guaranteed to be an automatic berth for the second year in a row. Fantastic weekend from Lux, and more of what we're expecting, of course, Fox Raceway, Millville, High Point, some of the great rounds this season from Turner. Let's see if he can keep the momentum going into the final round at Ironman. Then a little bit further down, unfortunately, Carson Mumford has ended up on the injured list after his weekend at Budds Creek. It was the recent form to begin the day that we've become accustomed to. Fourth place, a great ride. For a minute, he was the fastest rider on the track during the halfway portion of the race. He did make a mistake while trying to catch Landon Gordon for third. Ended up settling nicely into fourth, but he went down on the first lap of that second moto, walked off the track holding his wrist. The diagnosis was revealed on Tuesday, dislocated wrist. That will require surgery, and it looks like Mumford is out for the remainder of the 2026 season. Man, he can take a lot of solace in the fact that he has been putting in the best results of his career and has really injected new life into his future in the sport. Of course, he'll be back with that AEO Power Sports KTM racing team next summer. A bit further down the order now, Henry Miller. What a performance from the veteran. I've talked the last couple weeks about Henry needing to get a couple consistent moto scores to really show what he's capable of. He's had one good or one decent race and then one where he's a little bit further off. Well, Budds Creek, he excelled in those conditions. It didn't matter what you put him on. Henry Miller can get good results in any type of terrain. 15-13 for 14th overall, and Henry led the way for the MX6 Racing crew. He used his experience and his patience to his advantage on Saturday. There were times where he was making moves, and there were other times where he was starting to pick apart lines and to settle in to gain more knowledge. A great weekend from the number 53. How about Hunter Yoder for the Club MX Yamaha team? 13th place to begin the day, which was a strong showing. And then an impressive comeback in the final moto. He clipped someone's bike very early on and he fell to 38th, but man, he gained 20 spots afterwards, progressing to 18th. 18th only pays 5 points, but it was a valiant effort from Yoder coming back into the points. It's been a solid summer for Yoder. Of course, last year he wasn't able to show what he was fully capable of. This year, gaining experience, and that is another rider who should be good to go in terms of the SMX playoff seeding. Hunter Yoder walks into this weekend at Ironman, 19th in the playoff seeding. He is 9 points above the cut line ahead of Drew Adams, but most importantly, he has a 27-point gap over Landon Gordon, who is the next active racer. Max Anstey currently 21st, but he will not be at Ironman. Landon Gordon 27 points behind. That's a pretty good buffer for Yoder. He should be good to go. He can also, by scoring 4 points or more, put Nick Romano between himself and the bubble. So Yoder's looking to be in pretty good shape. Back to the AEO Power Sports KTM team. Now we have Avery Long. 3 straight weeks, fun fact here, that Avery Long has scored 11 points. Weird stat. Not sure how many times it's happened. Of course, up front, it's more likely to happen when you're scoring 50 or 44, 40, something along those lines. But yes, Avery Long, 11 points, 3 consecutive races. He went 21-12. It was definitely the tale of two different motos. He crashed very early in the muddy first moto, but he started working and climbing, and with 3 laps to go, he was 25th. It looked like he would be a few spots out of points, but he passed 4 riders in a single lap to claim the final point of that first moto. And then a top 15 start to end the day. That put him in a really good spot, and 12th was a great ending to the day for the sophomore. He carried the flag for the AEO team very nicely after Carson Mumford's unfortunate incident. Looking down further now, Dylan Schwartz, Toyota Redlands, Bar X Yamaha. Summer of Schwartz hit a bit of a pothole at Budds Creek. It was an 11th in the first moto. Pretty solid, pretty standard effort from Schwartz, but some sort of issue took him out of the second moto and took him out of a chance for, I believe, a fourth top 10 this summer. Then we have Brock Bennett from the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program on his number 159 Husqvarna, a 28th to begin the day. Brock Bennett, typically not a great starter, not a great qualifier. He is a great racer, don't get me wrong, but for whatever reason, it seems like starts really give him fits. He's 28th in the first moto, but he really rebounded in that second moto. He stayed in the points pretty much the entire race, and he finished 17th, which is his best effort of the year. And he was hanging in there with those guys. He looked like he belonged out there, and he definitely does. Brock Bennett, as I've said before on this show, very underrated in terms of his riding ability outdoors. Let's see what he can do at the finale next weekend. Marshall Welton scoring some more points, but man, it was a tough day at Budds Creek. He didn't lose any teeth, though, so that's a positive. He was getting hyped up on the PA system by Steve Mathis before the first moto. He had an outside gate pick, trying to use that to his advantage to maybe sneak around and get in a good spot, but he went down pretty early on. It didn't matter about the start. He did gain 22 spots during the race from 40th to 18th, putting 4 points on the board, but the second moto wasn't kind to him. He had an early crash, then he had another crash that dropped him out of the race, but Welton lives to fight another day. He'll be back at the finale looking for redemption. Honda teams, boy, was it a rough afternoon if you were a satellite or privateer 250 team for Honda. By my count, 5 out of the 6 Hondas that qualify for this distinction grenaded during the first 250 moto. Smoke everywhere. Brody Connolly, DNF. Alex Larwood, DNF. Of course, the Quadlock Honda boys. Both Phoenix Racing Hondas went out early in the first moto. Gavin Towers very late in the race. Aiden Kiefer also made it through the majority of the race. until he had issues. Then Cade Bradley on the SLR Honda crashed, and when he got up, his bike was billowing smoke and quit running. Alvin Hillen may have been a DNF as well, but I didn't catch what happened to the number 301 late in the race. But it was a really, really rough moto for whatever reason. The Honda Privateer and Satellite teams were having issues. Two of those riders did return to the points later in the day. Gavin Towers, a 19th place finish. He should have been 17-19 in the overall standings. He was running inside the points when his bike let go in Moto 1, but unfortunately, it's motocross, it's mud. That kind of thing happens from time to time. Alex Larwood took the final point at the end of the day. We usually save the final point for last, but man, these Honda riders feel bad for some of those guys. Not sure what the problem was, whether it was some kind of overheating issue, some kind of water really messing with things, but either way, somebody's probably going to be going back to the drawing board for these teams, and hopefully all of these fellas that I just mentioned get to end the year out on a high note. We did have a few pro debuts on Saturday, and leading the way of racers making their first start, it was Ryder Malinowski on the Club MX Yamaha. He, of course, has been present on the Unsung Heroes series the last few weeks as a part of the Canadian Corner segment. He narrowly missed out on the Canadian 250 class championship in the Triple Crown series. He rode for MX 101 Yamaha north of the border and was in a season long points battle with Dylan Rimple of GDR Honda, but unfortunately missed out on the championship. He rode number 431 on Saturday. On Friday, he had 431 on his jersey, but was running blank number plates, a blue front number plate, white back number plates. Pretty interesting look there. But Ryder Malinowski, 1922 in his first career pro motocross start. It was a pretty respectable effort considering the changing conditions. 19th place, he was solid in Moto 1, pretty quiet, but he hung in there in the points. But then his second moto, he had a crash early on in the race. He did gain a good bit of spots back, but just missed by a single position. He definitely gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of expertise dealing with different conditions from that muddy first moto to a bit drier second moto. We'll see where Malinowski chooses to line up this weekend, whether that's for another pro race or whether that's for an MX Combine. Of course, the final SMX Next event of the regular season this weekend coming up as well. Next, we have Gavin Betts, the final member of the MX6 Racing Kawasaki team, currently healthy. He began the day just 3/10 away from qualifying for the motos, and of course, on Saturday, the LCQs were canceled, so they took the top 40. Betts didn't get a chance to race his way in, but he lined up as an alternate, and boy, did he make the best of it. A 20th place finish to score his first points in his career, the first 2 points of his career to be exact, and also a stat from our friend SMX Muse. Betts joined his teammate Marshall Welton as the only alternates to score points this year. Marsh got a top 10 in the second moto at Southwick after missing the cut, and now Gavin Betts walking away from Budds Creek with his first career points. Congratulations to the number 373. Let's see what he can do in the finale as well, if he can build off of this result. And then last but not least, he wasn't the final privateer in the points. We mentioned Alex Larwood already, but Russell Bacheri, also another one of the McGinley Clinic privateer support program riders. He was 20th in the first moto. He's turning into one of the best mud riders, I think, in the privateer ranks because he made the main event at Philadelphia earlier this year. He had a top 10 in the SMX Next race in the absolute soup that was Foxborough last year, a 20th place to begin the day in some muddy conditions. Russell Bacheri, underrated in the mud. So if it rains, keep an eye out for the number 140 from here on out. Some sort of issue in the second moto, not 100% sure what happened, but Bacheri dropped out of the second moto a bit early. Hopefully, we see him back at 100% for the finale. Now, shouting out some of the top performers from the Women's Motocross Championship powered by Synchrony. It was a bit of the Three Musketeers on the podium on Saturday. Lachlan Turner, Charlie Cannon, Michaela Nielsen, the three real faces of the sport back up there again. Another great 1-1 performance from the two-time defending champ. She's in really good shape, a 21-point gap over Charlie Cannon. If she wins the first moto and somebody slides in between Turner and Cannon, she could wrap up the title a moto early, but we'll see what happens for her. Of course, she had her new puppy Bronx up on the podium, and she popped Big Gulp twice during the Saturday moto, which got the crowd really fired up. Congratulations to Lala on another win. Charlie Cannon, solid weekend, wasn't able to stay with Lala in that second moto, but nonetheless, a 2-2 weekend, not too bad. And I talked with Cannon after the first moto, and I heard from Jamie Astudillo a little bit earlier in the day. Of course, Astudillo was our guest last week on the show after she wrapped up her Triple Crown Canadian WMX title. Jamie said the track was very slick and one line during qualifying, and I asked Cannon after the first moto how was it. She said the track was basically concrete. You had to make sure you were coming out of a rut or coming out of a corner very straight, or your bike would slide in different directions. You had to be very precise. Charlie Cannon, 2-2 on the weekend. And then Michaela Nielsen, the first lady to score multiple overall podiums this season. Third place in the first four rounds changed hands a lot. Nielsen was third place at Hangtown. Then Taylor McCutcheon at Thunder Valley. Lotte Van Drunen was up on the podium, and shout out to her for her WMX victory in Arnhem in her home country of the Netherlands. She was the third place finisher at High Point. Then Mela Herrick took third at Unadilla. So Michaela Nielsen, Moto KK, the first woman other than Charlie Cannon and Lachlan Turner to score multiple podiums, and her starts were on point at Budds Creek. Taylor McCutcheon, 410, was able to claim fourth overall. Shout out to her, of course, the Partzilla Rocket PRMX Blaster Power Kawasaki rider. It was a solid weekend, especially the first moto for Taylor. And then, unfortunately, a first lap crash really ruined her chances of fighting. Although she did gain a bunch of spots, she progressed back to 10th, but she has that injured shoulder from the Australian WMX season, not quite at 100%. I also asked McCutcheon about her starts, how they have become so good, whether that was something she's always excelled at or something she's really worked on. And she told me, I didn't get a single hole shot last year or probably the year before either. She said she's really been working on starts all year, both back home in Australia and here in America. A great start, a hole shot and a lap lead in Moto 1, and a very valiant effort to salvage some points in Moto 2. It's going to be McCutcheon, Nielsen, and Jordan Jarvis battling for third in the standings this week, and keep an eye on that fight as well. We had some Canadians invading the WMX series this weekend, along with Astudillo, the American, coming back home, who had bad starts, by the way, in her races. She got 7-13 moto finishes for ninth overall, but starting the race, taking the green flag in 20th and 26th, not ideal for fighting toward the front of the field. Astudillo has another chance, though, for a great weekend. But the Canadians, Kaylee Kayer from the MX101 Yamaha team, and Hannah Cole from GDR Honda, they had very different weekends. Kayer was very solid, 9-7 for sixth overall, the second best Yamaha on the leaderboard. But Hannah Cole struggled mightily, 21-23, only a single point for the number 18 during the weekend. Also, a couple local natives with some solid results. How about Woodford, Virginia's Haley Vassallo? She's competing with the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program. She was 12th in the first moto, number 245 on her machine. She started inside the top 10 of that final moto, but unfortunately went down and lost some spots. Also, shout out to Lena Randolph, number 160 from La Plata, Maryland. She had the Maryland flag on her gear, and she's on a KTM 125, so you know the crowd was cheering for her as well. 14th place in the first Moto Nice top 15 effort from Randolph, just one spot shy of the points in the second moto. Now for a couple quick notes from the 250 class outside of the points. Parker Ross, I mentioned him a little bit earlier for Toyota Redlands Barracks Yamaha. He got off to a fantastic start during the second moto, took the green flag in second. He was side by side with Cole Davies. Of course, Cole had that big scrub over the finish line, bobbled a little bit afterwards, but Ross was up there in the mix for several laps. But for whatever reason, He slowly started to fade away and fade back. He ended up dropping all the way to 23rd and out of the points. He's been on a sophomore slump this summer. Maybe the number 40 can get it turned around here at the end of the year, but it looks like he's going to be one of those wild card racers in the SMX playoffs. And then I mentioned Ryder Malinowski as well earlier in the show, making his pro debut. Three other racers qualified for their first career pro motocross start. Shout out to Austin Schaefer, Thor Powell, and Will Cannigier. Each of those racers made their debut. Schaefer was the best of that group, 25 26 for 30th overall. Note what I said earlier in the show about consistency sometimes not paying off in motocross math. Thor Powell went 32 33, and Will went 39 38. So room to grow for those guys for sure. I believe Cannigier had some mechanical issues and some other things plaguing his day, but always cool to see new faces, and best of luck to them as they continue to grow in their professional careers. Now moving into the 450 class, and it was Jed Beaton once again for the second week in a row, his second national of the summer. He was the top non-factory racer here in America aboard his Monster Energy CDR Yamaha. Not quite the level of results he found at Unadilla, but nonetheless 16-15 was a solid day for the Australian. He will be back once again at the finale to try and prove his worth among the best American riders and the best international riders in the world. Mitchell Harrison just behind him in the overall standings aboard the Partzilla Rocket Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki. Quite the chaotic day for Mitchell Harrison. Money Mitch was doing his practice starts in the mud during the second qualifying session, and he was the subject of a hilarious blooper reel of photos posted by Transworld Motocross and, of course, their photographer, our photographer, being a part of the TWMX family, Kiana Keevan. Mitchell looked like it was solid, and then all of a sudden he slips and goes down. I'm sure Mitchell's mechanic was very stoked that the bike got all muddy and wet after that. But nonetheless, Mitch ripped a great start in the first moto. He was clear of a lot of the pack and ended up 13th, a very nice run for him. Ended up ahead of former 450 motocross champion Dylan Ferrandis as well. And then later in the day, not quite as good, but 19th, 3 points on the board. Although Jorge Prado was very frustrated at him at the end of the race. Apparently, Prado believed that Mitchell Harrison was holding him up toward the end, and then when both riders crossed the finish line, Prado decided to unleash some roost on Harrison after the checkered flag flew. So a little bit of beef there between the Spaniard and the Michigan native. But Mitchell Harrison is in the thick of the playoff race, and to jump into the automatic berths, he's really the only guy that has a chance. He needs 11 points this weekend to surpass Justin Hill. 11 points could be as simple as a 16-17 weekend, but obviously it's pro motocross. Nothing is ever that simple. We'll see if Mitchell Harrison is on the outside looking in and has to race as a wild card, or if he will be one of those automatic berths for the second straight year. Continuing on with the 450 class, shout out to Lorenzo Lacurcio, Wildcat Race Team Gas Gas. It's been a pretty solid summer for Lorenzo. He really picked it up after the first break of the season. He's continued. Unfortunately, he went down pretty early, ended up getting cross jumped and tagging someone in the first moto, but he had a pretty good charge. It took him a long time to get going. Of course, when you're back that far, he was 35th by the halfway mark, but he kept pushing. He gained 12 spots in the second half of the race. Unfortunately, he was a couple spots shy of the points in 23rd, but with a better start later in the day, Lacurcio got a bit of retribution, and he was able to put things back in the points for his own team, the number 50, ending the day with a solid result. 16th place in the final moto for Lorenzo. Then you have Mark Finnis on the ISRT Kawasaki machine. It was an interesting week for Mark. A lot of press and publicity after his really strong fifth place finish in the second moto at Unadilla. Unfortunately, the week was a bit tough for him. His practice bike had some sort of mechanical issue and blew up, so he wasn't able to practice much during the week. He spent a lot of time coaching up younger riders as well, but He also had a tough time in qualifying, only 34th in the first session. And of course, the second session, the rain started falling, no chance to improve times there. He did get a 19th in the first moto, but issues later in the day, dropped out early and was a DNF. But on the bright side, home track coming up this weekend for Finnis. Maybe he can go up there, snag another top 5 or top 10 result. The last couple privateers in the points in the 450 class, only 6 non-factory racers scoring points in the 450 class. Jeremy Hand on his Valley Motorsports Honda scoring a point for the first time since Redbud, 21st place in the final moto. It's been weird for Hand. He started the summer with a nice top 15 at High Point, and unfortunately, things went awry after that. But 21st, it's a sign of progress. And he closed in on Zach Osborne as well, less than a second behind the former champ at the checkered flag. And then the final racer with a point on the board, Justin Rodbell on the SLR Honda. It was his home track at Budds Creek. 21-24 were the moto scores for the number 83 machine. Now, a few quick notes from some racers outside of the 450 points. Magnus Smith from Denmark, the first racer outside of things. He has been pitting alongside Matty Jorgensen, the two Danes rocking together. Magnus, number 456 on a Yamaha, 24-25 were his moto scores on Saturday. I mentioned Justin Rodbell, one of the local riders, as is Gage Stein, number 268 on the Yamaha. He was back in action this weekend. Stein qualified his way into the show, and he ended up 33rd overall with 32-31 scores. And also, talk about a rider putting in results not very indicative of how fast they actually were. Brighton Carroll, number 483, of course, a very popular privateer in his own right. It was a very strong start for Carroll. He began his afternoon inside the top 15, but ended up dropping out of the first moto only. Then he returned a bit later in the day, and his Yamaha shut off on him. Thankfully, he was able to dismount. He crashed, but he was uninjured. A very unfortunate day for Brighton Carroll. He showed a lot of promise there in the first moto. He was running around those racers and he wasn't shuffled back very quickly. He was hanging in there around the top 15, top 20 range, but nothing to show for it. 37-40 were the overall scores for the second generation racer. We'll see if he's back on the line this weekend and ready to get some redemption at the final national of the season in Ironman. As always, thank you everyone for listening to this week's edition of the Unsung Heroes. The Budds Creek National is in the book. Now only one race remaining in the AMA Pro Motocross Championship and the Women's Motocross Championship powered by Synchrony. Thanks once again to Matt Bell for joining us on this week's show to talk about the new partnership between HBI Racing and Werks Triumph Racing. Look out for the Werks Racing team this weekend. One machine in the 250 class, Nick Hunt, one in the 450 class, Ryder Thompson, and also, of course, the three ladies I mentioned earlier in the show, Taylor Harold, Sydney Wagner, Carrie Killebrew, in the WMX ranks. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and join me next week as I talk about the top privateer and non-factory racers from the Ironman National. Only one round remaining in Pro Motocross. Let's make this one count. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy your weekends, and I'll see you after Ironman.